horses like my whole life. I don't come from like a riding family, but I had a babysitter that had horses as a kid, and we'd go to her house every day, and we'd go out and feed the horses. And I remember even at like one point, I maybe was like 3, which I think of this now and I'd be terrified. And so now I know why they yelled at me. But like I used to like go out into where the horses were and like reach all the grass that they couldn't reach on the outside and go feed it to them. And I was like 3 years old.
Wow.
So I always was like really into hanging out with them. And then I grew up in Colorado. And so really horses were like the only way that my parents could get me to do anything. Like I was one of those like really smart and very opinionated children. And so like they'd be like, "You're grounded." And I'd be like, "Whatever." And I'd go hang out in my room. Like it was hard to, but I always wanted to ride. So that was one thing that was sort of a through line.
Wow. So. That's wonderful. And do you have horses today now, I take it?
Yeah. I just sold actually that other horse, my older one. I had an 18-year-old dressage horse, just sold him. And then I have a 9-year-old Swedish warm blood mare.
Wow. That's wonderful. That's just wonderful. Yeah. And it from what you have said, you have shown quite a bit and reached good levels, your bigger, higher levels with your dressage and so forth, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, now I'm sort of in the process of really like wanting to learn how to train my own horses up the levels. So like my mare's schooling pre-St. George right now. I started her kind of myself as she was a young horse. Like she didn't have a flying change or anything when I got her.
Wow.
So, but yeah, that's definitely, I've shown through the pre-St. George.
That's wonderful. Highly disciplined. Very good. Wow. Good for you. Lots and lots of schooling and work on the flat. A lot.
Yeah.
How do you find time to ride?
Well, I invented my job, so I just do it whenever I want. Like I'm the type of person that like I will like if I have something I need to get done, I'll just get it done. Like it doesn't bother me to work at night or in the morning or whenever. And so like if I'm going to check out for 5 hours and go do my horse, that's fine. But then like, I'll be sitting there till 8:00 at night doing emails if I have to. So, and I make my own hours, like most of my stuff is my clients, we schedule calls and stuff like that. So I make my own hours. My staff all make their own hours.
Awesome.
It's sort of, when I started my business, I read this book by Yvonne Chouinard called Let My People Go Fishing. And it's about productivity in the workplace and management styles, because I was like, okay, I'm starting a company. I have to learn. I have a psychology degree. So I was like, there's a lot of different, studies in terms of how you manage people. And I was very big on like, I'm a terrible employee. You don't want me to work for you. Because I figure out how to do my job very quickly and then I'm off to something else. Yeah. And so I'm not a good plug and play, like show up and do the same thing every day person. So because I think I'm a difficult employee, I work really well with the like other people also that are not really good employees. So I had to figure out like, how do I get these people, or they wouldn't be happy employees in a lot of work environments. So I was like, how can I be productive? And so that book was like really helpful because I manage my team. He says it starts with the first person you hire, and it's so true. And like my whole team is very much like me. And so that's the big thing is that if you don't let people go and enjoy their lives, for us it was riding, for Yvonne Chouinard it's climbing and fishing. You don't let people do that, then why do they work hard?
Right. Very true.
I like to think that like my staff are very happy in their jobs. I mean, like my head of operations has been with me since I started the company, and they're able to move, they're able to ride horses, they're able to travel, like nobody works because they want to work for a living. We like what we do in our projects, but we want to be able to, live our lives. So I'm big on that.
That's so nice. Now, when did you start your company? How long has it been in going?
So we started formally in 2016. I'd say I probably started in 2015. It started as like a hobby business. I was working from home at the time doing production consulting. I have a master's of fine arts from UCLA. So I was doing a lot of like working for them, basically all I was doing was finance for production. So I was just running budgets, which is ironic because I never thought I was really good at math until I learned that like you're really good at math, but it involves money and you want to pay for horses.
Yeah.
So I like figured out how to do that. And so I got to the point where like I could pretty much do my job for them in like 4 hours a day, but they didn't know it because I, wasn't, they couldn't see you, they work from home. So I did that. And then I started getting asked to like help a couple of different brands or riders with their stuff. So originally I just took on like 1 rider, 2 riders, and helped with social media for 1 brand. Cause this was really when like, Instagram started to take off in the horse world, and Facebook ads were still really effective for businesses like crazy at cheap. So we started then, and then it got to the point where by 2017, I had like full on replaced my income at my other job and was kind of coasting, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. So
So did you do this yourself, or was there someone else involved with you when you got started, or how did that, come about?
I initially started by myself. I took on a couple of clients, and then I had Claire, who now is like one of our senior consultants and heads up operations. She reached out to me because she was a student at William Woods in their business MBA program. And so she needed an internship. I've had a lot of William Woods students actually intern for us over the years because they have to for school credit and stuff. And I think we provide something a little bit different, but also like real world for them. So she messaged me because I had a Colorado phone number and she thought maybe I was in Colorado. I wasn't, but then she ended up interning for me. And then after that, she's been with me ever since. So she started working part-time as the business grew, then she became full-time, and then now she's grown to really heading up a lot of our operations and stuff.
Cool.
You have a really impressive team. Did you slowly build up your team, or was it pretty fast?
That was my next question. Yep, that's good.
Oh, I like the team building question. So it's like twofold. So the consulting side of what we do and the project management, you really have to have an intimate knowledge of horses. So nobody comes and works for me that has not, unless you're a specialty. But if you want to be a consultant, which is like kind of a cross between a sports agent, a marketer, and a project manager. So if you want to do that job, you have to have a background in horses. And they always have to intern, because there's no way to sit down, and every client's needs are different. Every business's needs are different. You have to, in this company, you have to know how to teach yourself things, and you have to be able to, come up with constructive solutions and learn our sort of internal process and communication style. So everyone starts with interns and then they move in. So I'd say that those positions are the hardest to hire, because generally there's a lot of people who are really passionate and they think they want to do this, but they don't know the first thing about it. So they don't want to, but they can't afford to be an intern or part-time until they learn, but they also don't learn fast enough for this job for me to hire them full-time. So, I've gotten a little bit better at it. We've become a little bit more creative in segmenting some of our process. And that really actually came more from contracts with the clients. And I mean, the first contracts for the company I did myself 2 years ago was the first time I actually had a lawyer like fix all of them. And I feel like every single year our contracts get better. So because you get kind of screwed over. So you learn, it's all falling flat on your face with contracts.
It wouldn't be in the contract if something didn't happen.
Yeah, if something didn't happen, or the expectations, it's all about clarity, right? Because even if you have the contracts and it's there, but sometimes the clients, I believe all conflict in business and in life comes from expectations not being met. And generally that's because the expectations are not clear. So the clearer that you can manage either the client's expectations going in, so they know what they're getting for what they're paying, then they have something measurable when they're going, do I want to keep doing this? Is this working? Is it not? So it's all about transparency. And so that's the big thing I'd say with like hiring that core team, is that's the process that they really manage. And so I've gotten a bit better now at like, we have like one girl that is full-time that only does social media, but over the course of that period, she's learned to do some other things. And then you kind of also have to assess, like, a lot of people have different skills. So some people are good at doing kind of more of the same thing, but doing it a little bit differently. Other people get bored with that. And so to keep those employees happy, you have to give them new projects and new clients. And I'm that way. Like, I want to change. Claire's that way. Like, we want to change something else. But then with like a lot of what we do, and what I felt with the equestrian industry was missing was, like a lot of people will hire their cousin to do their social media, or my favorite, let me just call this photographer that I know and have them come out and shoot these photos for my brand. Bad idea. Like, and that's the thing, I think, because of my background, at UCLA and working in production consulting, because I worked with big brands like Hershey's and PepsiCo, is like, what you pay for is what you get in the artistic world. The same way with a horse. You want to walk in and spend $3,000, you can get a thoroughbred that's maybe going to have some issues. You might get lucky. No one's saying you're not going to, but if you want to buy something nice, maybe we need to import something or get something nice from a breeder. You get what you pay for.
I do agree.
So what I've done actually, and this I think came from my film background, is we have a awesome team of creatives. And because I have so many clients now and the business has grown so much, they work on a lot of different accounts. And so I was able to kind of do this, like, I don't know, I call it like, it's like a co-op management approach, in that like normal creatives wouldn't be available at the level that I have. Like Sean Mosher Smith, my creative director, is an incredible creative director that does ad campaigns and stuff. He's, he did stuff for Capitol Records. Like, he did all the Christina Aguilera campaign. I mean, he's incredible, genius. And, my ads managers, like one of my girls does all of the ads for HBO Max, but you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people that want to make money on the side, want to work on certain projects that are different or fun in a less structured and less stressful environment, which I think we do a good job at. And if you have enough people, you can have, so I have some members of my team who are really good at one thing, and we send the clients for that thing to them. So I have 2 graphic designers that do specific things, and that's what the consultants do in the middle, is they decide, when do we use the big guns for each. We have 3 web developers, but even within my web developer team, I mean, they're all good at different things. Cindy's really, really good at raw coding. Like, even that, I think people don't understand. They hire a web developer, or even better, they try to make it themselves. And they don't realize that there's actually like areas of expertise within web development itself. So like, I have one gal who is as a web developer, is actually a really talented designer, and she knows horses and stuff. So quite often she'll actually run the layouts and create the design for the clients. But then, sometimes it's kind of like being an architect. I'd say she's more like an architect or an interior designer, but then you still need the carpenter that can come in and actually like code it all. And she can do it, but you don't do it all yourself. You just can't. I mean, we're building anywhere from 6 to 10 websites a month. We're making, big changes on different websites. I mean, we manage over 100 social media profiles every day. So it just keeps growing. And so I think the process of building a team is finding out like how to utilize what people are good at in order to provide the services to your clients in a way that they're happy, but then also meshing it all together. It's a very messy process, honestly. Like, clients come and go as you learn that process too. And you have to, you learn from the clients that, because I think every client, at least for me, we've always wanted to make them happy. We've always wanted to get good results. Sometimes if that doesn't happen, or there's like a lack of, like expectations or something, because you'll have the other side too, where we've had clients that think we should just do everything for them, and you're like, oh my God, we can't, like, that's not under contract. You're getting a whole marketing department, for a website cost. So, it's stuff like that, or like you'll do shoots and people don't realize, like, well, there's this thing called post-production, you still have to edit it, you still have to do all that. So I think it's just about like figuring out what your service is and our services are going to be, figuring out who is going to be able to fulfill them, and creating like a transparent process for both the client to understand what they're going to get and how they're going to be able to measure the success, and also that the staff member understands what's going to be expected of them, and that you put someone there who's competent enough to deliver.
I don't think people know enough about like marketing, and it's changed so much. I'm the oldest one here, but I mean, how much it's changed, and the time that goes into, the different processes that you have to do, like you're talking about, like the editing. People don't realize sometimes that there's editing that has to be done, or the thought process that goes into it, and then just trying to come up with all the different drafts and proofs, and trying to curtail it to that particular person's, needs of what they're wanting. And then to get that wow, that you need with it is hard to do, to get the pop or the, the subtle boom, this is what it is. And that's tough to do. It's not the easiest thing in the world to come up with.
Yeah, and it's really hard because I work with a lot of startups and small businesses. Like we work with bigger companies that are international as well as like small startups. And so, and I like startups. I'm really passionate about small business. But sometimes it's even a process of just, them understanding and me understanding what level of creative that they're going to be happy with, because, like it is, I always like to tell people marketing can be like the creative side. It's like building a house, right? So what I love is when someone says, okay, I want this, like I want an ad campaign that has this, it's like, that's like me going to an architect and saying, okay, I want a 4-bedroom house and it has to have 2 bathrooms and I want it to be good for this family, right? And they tell you who the people are and you're like, okay. And then you're like, okay, well, but we could build it on the coast in Malibu. We could build it down in Rancho Santa Fe. We could build it in downtown Los Angeles, and it's all on one floor of a high rise. So like 1 bedroom, like a 4-bedroom home does not look the same by any means. And I think that's the thing people have a hard time understanding when, like, I love people go, well, how much is it going to cost? I'm like, can you give me a budget of like where we can be? And then no client wants to do that, right? Because they don't want to spend more than they think they should. But the reality of it is like when you give a client, a company, like even a range, then they understand, all right, this person can't afford a house on the beach in Malibu, but we could maybe do something up in the hills. You know what I mean? That kind of thing, because the sky's the limit. I mean, like when you see the tip top of visual effects, look at how much it costs to make, a Wonder Woman movie and do all the marketing and PR for that. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars. So it's, you can spend $5 million building a house if you want, or you can spend less. It's there's options. And so that's really I think that's the hardest part when you work with small business too, is just navigating that process with them. Because at the end of the day, like, we're on their side. We just want to build a house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
how do you guide them, like when they are, because I know when we started out, as a small business, that would have been really scary to walk into those waters of trying to figure that out. And do you help them to like calm their nerves to get them through that so that they understand what that will do for them and for their business?
I think that, yes. I mean, do businesses need to be prepared to make an investment in marketing up front? Yes. I think that the best way for a small business is to understand how much money they're comfortable spending, let's say in the first year, and then prioritizing where that money goes. Because I think that in the wrong hands with someone that doesn't understand how a small business operates with limited capital, what can happen is you can end up spending too much on a marketing opportunity that may be great, but without a lot of other individual activations or support or brand building that's going on the digital side, it can be a lot more, you're not going to get that same ROI. And the biggest priority is, especially for a small business, is starting to do business. That's a big thing. So like, it just depends on the client, really. I think I try to get a really good feel for, the client and their expectations in terms of creative. We're really big on asking for references. I always ask clients to show me things that they like and then manage their expectations and how much it costs to make something like that. I mean, we try not to put out anything that's ugly that we think is, bad. And that can range from a client that maybe can only afford stock photography because they can't even do a shoot to, to build their first site with photoshopped product images until they can actually build, a website and do a shoot and do all of that. So, and it depends on how you bring in the creative into it and just managing expectations of like, this isn't something we can pull off for less than this. But we're fairly transparent. Our clients get to see the estimates, so they know like exactly how much it costs to have this person and that person. And so that's a big part of the process, I think, I think a lot of agencies aren't very transparent. And then, what's nice is like, for instance, our ads packages, we always tell the client up front, you may not see a direct ROI from this for 3 months. It takes 3 months to start collecting enough data to really start seeing the campaigns. Like, for instance, I don't know if you are familiar with ad targeting. You start running these ads and the pixel has to start collecting data about the customers. And so until you have a large amount of data collected on your customers, you can't target them to buy. And so it's a process of literally teaching them how it all works. And I think that's what our consultants have to be really good at doing, is explaining to the clients how things work and what to expect. So that's generally what we have to do.
So as your team has grown, how has your role changed in all of this?
Well, they do things that I can't do. So I would say, like, the biggest thing is taking a step back. I do a lot less hands-on. Yeah. Like, clients will call me and they'll be like, oh, this picture and this, and I want this. And I'll be like, yeah, okay, like, let me get so-and-so, you know, because I don't even know where it is. I have so many clients now that, like, I don't know what their individual picture from this day, I don't know where their files are in the cloud. You know, it's too much for one person. I would die. So my role has become a lot more taking a step back and making sure that these processes are in place so that those team members so that everyone has what they need to do a good job, that they're working together well, that the communication of expectations with the clients is good. I do a lot more budgeting and payroll and insurance paperwork and, you know, making sure
behind the scenes.
Big projects, you know, like the photo shoots, all the riders, I still am very involved in the rider management side. So in terms of like their overall brands with the professional riders, I manage pretty much the overall and the networking, but like, do I physically manage the social media accounts? No, I can't. They're day-to-day posts. So it's more like that, I'd say, more taking a step back. And then the biggest thing when you're a CEO is actually, you know, there's a saying of like, if sharks don't swim forward, they die. So you have to think like that if you have a business, especially a business in the digital space. So I always have to be hiring people that are good at things that I'm not, that have services that are becoming more valuable, because it changes, right? Like Facebook ads, you know, 5 years ago, you could pay $100 and you'd be like, wow, this is a cash cow. And now it's changed. I mean, the algorithm alone for Instagram has changed astronomically in the last year, and interactions have really changed. And so, you know, my job is to really make sure that I'm keeping people in the company that have the skills to navigate those changes in the industry. And then the other part of it is running ahead of the company. Where do we go from here? What's our current revenue? I mean, no one wants to work for a company for, you know, 5 years and never get a raise. So I can't just be sitting here thinking about just getting more clients that are the same thing, because services change. So I need to be thinking about, like, what are new things that are helpful to our clients? How can these, so I'm basically always running ahead of the company. So you have to make sure that you're still thinking of new ways to get new clients. I have to be the one that's concerned with marketing my own business as well, not just marketing all of the clients.
That's the ownership role, definitely. You know, there's so many facets to it that a lot of people don't know. They don't realize when you get into that role, and you grow into it and you learn it as you go along. But you do have to hire people that know more than you. That's the smartest thing you can do. Because if you don't,
I mean, I can't be an expert in everything. I can't be an expert in digital ads and be able to code websites.
And I think some people want to control, you know, or have that, you know, I can take care of all this, but you can't. So the person that does get those people to come in, they can grow further and you know, make it bigger, have the ability to be able to do that.
Well, and I think that's such a good thing that you grow up, because I actually think that's something that's my responsibility too, is it's my job to make sure that we have enough clients and enough revenue that they can make mistakes, because I can't micromanage them, because there's too many clients, there's too many people as you grow, that, like, if they put out an Instagram post, let's say, that has a typo and the client is freaking out about it, they obviously need to fix it right away, but, like, they're gonna make those mistakes, right? Like, they're human, and things are gonna happen where an email something didn't happen, you know, whatever. And it's my job as the CEO to build the company enough that, like, in the event that a client leaves or something happens, you know, that we have the resources to still support those, so that like, my biggest thing is making sure my employees and my team feel like the environment is safe. You know, so, and there's times where I have to I have to push back from clients. You know, I do run a pretty good, I think, in terms of customer service, like, we really work to be, you know, solution focused and what's this, what's that. But there's times when, like, you have abusive clients too, and you have to figure out, like, how to put them in areas where they can either, be successful with the team you have or protect your team. Right. So that's one thing, like, because they have to learn. Like, I can't do it all for them. They have to be, and because that's how they remember, especially with the consultants. Like, if they forget something, like say someone has a clinic or something, and I don't know, something doesn't go out or whatever, a press release, or no one asked about something. It's little things like that happen sometimes, especially because sports and like social media are a 24/7 industry. And so sometimes this is hard for clients to understand, because like, I will not ask my staff to work 24/7 for you, for anyone. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes it's hard for them to understand, like, hey, if you don't give them enough of a heads up and know this is happening, they might not be around at 2:00 on a Saturday to do a last minute post for you. We try, every account has an account manager and a supporting staff. So there's 2 people that kind of tag team, but it's that sort of stuff. So I have to build up the company enough that in terms of the finances, that we're safe, so they can make mistakes sometimes and they can learn from them and do better.
Yep. And that can be a little scary, not knowing where the economy is going, or what's happening. I mean, we just don't know. But it seems like the advertising has done so well, marketing has done so well, because it's become into such a place where it's so diverse. And so at the end of the day, with all of this being said, at the end of the day, when you kind of sit back and take a breather, do you just go, whoa, look at all of this? Or, does your mind just go like, up, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this? Or how do you feel, at the end of the day? Is it like, whew, look at where we come from? And, how do you feel?
That's a hard question.
I know it is. That's why I like to ask it, because it's your personal feeling. Like, what's deep down inside of you, and how do you feel about it all?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. Like, I have to be really careful because I'm a really hard worker, and I get burned out.
I can tell.
And
you're a pusher.
And so sometimes I feel like this is like real table talk here, right?
That's it.
That's where we are. It's kind of annoying, right? Like, because I work in horse sports, right? So everybody, when they do well in horse sports, they get a ribbon. Yeah. And they get a prize. Yeah. I don't get a prize if I run a good business.
You don't. No.
And it's not like I can run down the street and be like, oh my God, look, we did $1 million in revenue this year. Yay.
Well,
I can't do that. Like, so that's kind of, so sometimes you have, like, I'll have clients that are going to the Olympics, or I'll have clients that are going here, or, I have a client that just their ads exploded and, whatever. And I think our clients really appreciate us. They stay with us a long time. We have a very, our turnover rate is excellent. But once in a while you're like, like, are people really that, you help a lot of people. You don't get a lot of thank yous when it's a service that you're giving.
It is a thankless job. That's when at the end of the day, you sit back and you look at it, you have to say, where am I with this? I think that's what I come to, and we come to. It's like, it's okay.
I think I do that. Yeah, I think I do that like everyone else. Like, sometimes, and mainly the riders too, because I think the riders really focus a lot on thanking their coaches and thanking their mentors. But and I'm not one to do a big like song and dance about, the like, oh, we got all these articles and we built your social media, and that's why you have all these owners now. I'm not that kind of person. But I'd say sometimes you sit back and you're like, huh. But that at the same time, it's like, look what you've been able to do, and it feels good. I'm someone that believes that, service, you get what you put into this sport, and service is important. And so, but every once in a while, so when I feel that way, I feel like I have to take a step back and be like, okay, I need something that I'm excited about for me. And so generally that's like reassessing or changing something in my personal life or in my own riding, because I'm a big believer in this like lift as you climb kind of thing. And there isn't a rider that could call me and ask for something and I wouldn't, be there and help them. I've helped a lot of riders with a lot of different stuff, whether it's things they need during big competitions or help with clinics or whatever. And so, I'm really here to support the sport. But I think that, like you said, sometimes you feel that way. You're like, God, but then there's other cool things, like, because I never like woke up one day and was like, yeah, I want to own a company. It was never like that. It was like, I want to have money to pay for my horses, and I'm really bad at working for other people. So I really just need to make money. So figure out how to make money. So that was what I did, was how can I do something for someone that would make money? And then from there, it kind of became a company. I'd say I actually get more kind of validation, less from the clients, right? Because the clients, if you do a good job, they thank you for 10 minutes, they forget. And then they want something else. And that's fine. But I'd say it's more my staff. Like I remember when like Claire, who's been an intern for me, bought her own like first car, because like Claire's been with me since college, and so now she's like a grown-up, and like they bought a house and they have a car, and like she bought her first car, and like I remember when she bought a car, and I was like, I don't know if I'm like excited or if that's like a kick in the gut, because I'm not responsible for only myself and how I put food on the table or pay for my horses. I'm responsible for how other people like make their living. And so I think that for me, I have a little bit more fun and I get excited about that and like building a big team. And also like, I kind of see us as like this little merry bandit of like weird horse girls that did our own thing, that like have this like secret knowledge that you don't have to be a horse trainer to be in the horse industry or to ride.
There you go.
Like, like being a horse trainer is a really hard job. I'm not saying like I help horse trainers all day, but like some people don't, like I had other skills that were extremely valuable. So like, why not? I mean, Scottie Pippen, you know, he was a manager before he was a Hall of Famer. So I think, you know, sometimes, you can kind of feel like your own riding goals get pushed aside. It's like, oh, you're the manager, you know, you're the agent, that kind of thing. But for the most part, I think it's like we have this really cool team of like, that I'd say I'm proud of that. I'm more proud of that, being able to give these people a job where like my staff can be like, hey, I mean, like there's a lot of times where I'll call the girls that work for me like, are you working today? Like, I don't even know, you know what I mean? Because they get their stuff done and they're available when we need to be and when we need to do stuff for their clients. And I like that, because I think that life, this like 9 to 5 thing that our parents did, it wasn't healthy and people weren't happy. And so I like to think that like the people that work for us are really happy and they enjoy their jobs. And so that for me is like more validating, I think, than, you know, the creative work. But I mean, you're always excited when you do a cool creative campaign too.
Yeah.
Like,
so what hours do they have to kind of be available for scheduling with clients, or at, you know, at a certain time, like for sure, like what time do they have to be around?
Well, so it's 2021, so everybody has a cell phone, so they have to be on WhatsApp pretty much all the time. So we have like open chat WhatsApps for text messages that if someone has a call or someone needs something, like generally the team checks in every, like I would say every 4 hours, you check those messages. Now, does it mean that you have to work? No. But if you're going to be like completely off the grid, then you have to have coverage. If you're going to be off the grid for more than like 6 hours, like someone needs to know in case your client has a crisis, you know, whatever.
Yes.
But other than that, I don't make their hours. I'm not their mom. Like there's no time clocking in. I mean, like with certain things like projects, like creative projects, you'll have team members that are working hourly on graphic design and website stuff, and that matters. But like, I'm not going to tell them if they do their best work at 2:00 in the morning, then do it at 2:00 in the morning. I mean, all the girls in my company, they want to ride, they want to do stuff. Like I want them to do that so that they're happier and more motivated to work harder in the company. So, I mean, like my hours change every day. So sometimes I ride in the morning, sometimes I ride in the afternoon, and then I work in the morning. It varies. I mean, like last week I worked Saturday and Sunday and Monday straight through because we had film shoots. So we're really like a work when you need to, but like if they don't have anything to do or they've done all their work and everyone's happy, then like go ride your horse, go hiking, go have fun with your family. I mean, it takes a certain person to work from home. Everyone has to be really disciplined. Like there are people that have tried to work for us and it does not work.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're that type of person, then I don't need to tell you. I mean, we do schedule calls with our clients. And so generally we all check with each other's schedules. Hey, can you do a call this time? You know, we're responsible for blocking out our calendars of when we're not going to be available. And then, you know, clients will schedule things. But other than that, I mean, and we have clients that are on like 7 different time zones and our staff works on 3. So when you have that many time zones involved, because everyone works from home, and we have clients in Italy, we have clients in Australia, we We've had clients in Canada. We have a ton of clients on the East Coast, West Coast, and then I also own a clothing line. So I'm acting CEO for the clothing line Entrigue as well. So sometimes I have to do stuff with clients. We have clients in South Africa and Asia for that company too. So yeah. But like if a client wants a call at 7:00 at night and it's their only call they've asked for this week and it's something important, move your schedule and make it work.
I know you have a pretty large size staff too. So they obviously live across the United States then. They're not all near you then. So they can be in different areas and it works out well for you that way too with the different time zones and so forth.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I'm not awake until I'm not going to look at anything until 8 a.m. Pacific right now. So, but it's the same thing. Like I'm not going to hear from my girls that work on the East Coast after, maybe 6 p.m. Because it's 9:00 at night there, they fell asleep. But I think it's just also having some accountability as a manager, because there have been times where like I would ask people to work all the time and you're like running. And now I've learned a little bit, I've had the business longer, that like people like go crazy. So you have to take a step back, because it's not their business at the end of the day, it's mine. So when I feel like I have an employee that's working a lot, like all the time, that's not in a super high leadership position, and the people in the leadership position aren't getting times to like chill out, then I know that we're understaffed. And I have to bring in more people, even if it's just part-time to help with relief and stuff.
What would you say to people listening that are maybe just a startup company and they would like to do some marketing? Are there like maybe say 3 things that you would tell them if you've got a person who's like, I have no idea of where to go with this? Are there like maybe a few things you would just say, no, this, and this, and then someone can help you with it? Is there anything you can give advice to people on for something like that?
Well, I'd say first, like, know who you want your customer to be. Like if your business is big, in 5 years, who are your customers? Who's buying whatever it is that your service is providing? Like what's your ideal client? Because from there, every single aspect of what you put out there of your brand should be aligned with attracting that person.
Right.
Okay.
So it's sort of like, I don't know, I'd say like dating, right? It's not, but it's like psychology. Like if you are somebody that knows that you really like this guy and he likes girls that are blondes, this is not, I think, a healthy way to date, but whatever. Like, you're going to have blonde hair, right? And so people have things they like, things they don't like, and sort of, like the needs, for instance, of the hunter jumper industry are different than the needs of the dressage industry. The customer base has very different body types, very different clienteles, very different income brackets when you think about your pricing with competitors and stuff. So the biggest thing is to try to really think about like who's your ideal customer and like what motivates them and what influences their decisions. Okay. From there, the second thing will be the website. Do not, if you can, like you can build your first website yourself, but like that would be the first thing I'd say if you're a new business that you pay for to have somebody do. There are people who are good, who are affordable. And the biggest thing is to make sure if you are hiring someone to do a website for you, that they actually really know what they're doing. There's a lot of people who say that they do, but they don't have an understanding of SEO, which is search engine optimization. If somebody tells you to build like a website for your business in Squarespace and that's great and that they're going to charge you a lot of money for that, run. Because those sites, for instance, are like super visual and you can't have any SEO, which how is anyone supposed to find you? Right. So things like that. And then the other thing I would say is that with social media, the biggest thing is consistency. And it's really like, don't view your social media as a place where you're going to get customers anymore. It's changed. That was like 3 years ago. Now it's really more about brand recognition and brand building and participating in an online community with your customers. But if you actually want to do like direct sales to your customers or drive traffic to your website, you have to pay to play now. And it's all digitalized.
Is there a certain percentage that you recommend like small businesses to put out for marketing? Or
generally, it depends on the size of the startup, right? So like it should be 10% of your budget for the year. I actually think in the first 3 years though, depending on the business, it's really more than like 15. when you're building your brand, because you need to make sure you have like a good logo and a good website. Like those to me are marketing assets. They're not actual marketing.
Yeah.
So you want to look at like 10%. Yeah. So like if you want to do 18 million in revenue, you have to spend 1.8 million at least, if not more.
Do you see trends heading in a different direction? I know it's been, like the social media has changed. Like you said, you could pay for it. Now you have to, it's more of like you're building the community. The community is big.
Yeah.
Do you see a trending thing coming that, we're kind of on the edge of, or?
I think a lot of people, like consumers are getting smarter, right?
Yeah.
So we are becoming, because of this whole controversy with Apple and Facebook, we're becoming more educated on ads targeting. I mean, there's nothing scarier than like having a phone conversation with your friend talking about how you need to find like a new concealer, and then 20 minutes later, and you're on the phone with them,
right?
And then, or you say you went to Target and you clicked on a product that you actually thought you'd buy, and then 20 minutes later, it's all over your feed.
Yeah, that happens.
So yeah, I mean, so it's like I think people are getting. I do think that customers are getting smarter and they're understanding what they're being targeted with.
Yeah.
So I think that actually like brand building and creative campaigns are more important than ever before, because like anybody can just make ads that show their products, but like building campaigns that really showcase your brand is really where I'm advising clients to go, that tells a story of your brand, because that's how the customers cut through kind of all the BS that's out there. There's just an overwhelming amount of ads and stuff. But I have to say, just even with like, 2 years ago, I decided I was going to learn how to play the stock market. I'm like that. I picked something new. So like 3 years ago, I was like, I'm going to learn how to use airline miles because I never want to fly coach again, not over the ocean. And so what did I do? I figured it all out. There's a whole system to it. You can learn it and you just go upgrades and all the miles. It's amazing. Anyways, so I was like, I'm going to learn how to do the same thing with the stock market. So I found somebody that knew more than me, sat down and started doing my own little, you have your funds and stuff, but I was like, no, I want to buy stock because I understand how businesses work. So I want to buy stock and sell it and move it, and because I can do this. So it's kind of like that. And like if you watch what's going on right now, I mean, people are shopping, people are out.
Yes,
and
they are.
The equestrian industry really did not get hit very hard by COVID because they were in an income bracket for the most part that was very, I'd say the majority of people, they're in an income bracket that actually made most of their income or does well from either, other things in the same industry or from other areas like entertainment, tech, at least in the United States, entertainment, tech, or especially the stock market. And like with our last presidency, the stock market was ridiculous. So all these people actually have more money to spend. And then with them printing all the money and inflation, like the dollar there's suddenly a lot more money out there and people are spending more money than they ever have. And like the cost of goods has actually not increased yet. I think we're going to start to see that over the next, year, that the cost of the prices for things that we're seeing it, right? Lumber, gas,
Steel.
That's what happens with inflation. So, I think it's a really good time for businesses to pay off debt because your dollar is like basically becoming worth, a lot less. So you may as well take care of that now. That's like a really good thing to do. So I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see a lot of prices go up on a lot of products. And I think that's why it's even more important, I think, for businesses that sell products, especially if we're just talking products, to have a really good idea of what makes them different and their quality and their customer experience, and to really have a good grip on that and their supply chains, because I think that, all the good things are going to be going up quick because people are going to want to buy those. There's not a lot of also with all the COVID delays, especially in like apparel, for instance, there's a lot of fabrics and stuff. Like I have one even for my own line that I was told I can't even get till 2023.
Yes, yeah.
I'm like, what? Because they didn't make it during COVID. So I can't even get fabric. Even if I order it and wait 6 months, I still can't get it. Like, so when you go on like some of these websites like State Line Tack or Smart Pack, and you're like, oh my God, why can't I buy my bucket? And it's like, because they stopped making all this stuff. So I think what's going to happen with that though, is that consumers are going to learn that they actually don't need as much stuff. And so they're going to start to be more particular about the things that they buy. And I think that they're going to be willing to pay more as the prices go up too with inflation. The items are going to get more expensive. So then when they are making purchases, they're going to have a lot more of a thought process about it. And so I foresee, it's going to be more important than ever before for brands to really have that brand recognition, be recognizable, have people know their quality and what they really are, where they fit into a whole, where they solve a problem for a customer. Because I think otherwise, I think we're going to see a lot of like that kind of tchotchke things go away. I don't know. That might be my jaded view, but I'm a minimalist, so.
That's really good, though. That's good. That's interesting, because I think the same thing. Times are changing, and they're changing fast. And I think it's good to be aware of like how to think forward with what you're going to be doing with your business or your company to market it.
Yeah. All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll enter our next segment, Canter Banter.
Do you love horses and live the equestrian lifestyle? Be sure to check out our brand new blog at www.yourhorsefarm.com. We publish 3 posts per week and feature a free printable equine checklist every month. Yourhorsefarm.com is a great equine online resource, so be sure to share with all the horse lovers in your life. And remember, laugh much and ride often. Our next segment, Canter Banter, is brought to you by Ram Horse Fencing and Stalls, the one-stop shop for your horse farm. Ram is family-owned and operated and has been in business for over 30 years. We welcome you to call in and speak with an expert about your next project today at 866-653-8984. Again, that's 866-653-8984.
Like one of the things that I do is like, because we work across all different horse sports. And so I have taken groups to like the Kentucky Derby, where I've had clients sponsor jockeys in the Derby. So people that want, say you guys want to sponsor a jockey in the Kentucky Derby or a big race, you can call me, we can set it up. But then the thing that happens is like people actually, when you're a sponsor, like you're a family owned business, you might want to sponsor a jockey, but then you guys want to go, right? Like you're not going to sponsor a jockey and not go. So I am like the physical person that works with the manager of the jockeys, the talent manager for all the jockeys. We work together. She's one of our horse racing consultants, but she's also been a mentor and friend of mine for many, many years. And so I physically take these groups to the Kentucky Derby. And I do the whole thing. And a lot of it happens kind of fairly last minute because, the sponsorships happen maybe 2 weeks before. So, but sometimes they know they want to go ahead, so we get everything done. So one time I had a group that it was a small group, 4 people, 2 of them really good, like friends of mine, and then their friends, and they had always bucket listing. And it was just funny from the beginning, right? Because everybody has all these romantic ideas of the Kentucky Derby in their head, right? They like think that it's like this, it's all hats and glamour, it's like the Oscars,
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not. It's a horse race, and that's why actually, like, I think a lot of like the ultra wealthy people love it, because it's like you're in it and it's grungy and it's all this stuff, right? So, we have to do everything. Like I hold their hand start to finish. I find the hotels, I do the car, I do all of that. Well, and stuff, no matter how much I plan, things go wrong because there's 300,000 people coming into Kentucky, and like the National Guard is activated to get in. Yeah. So I took this family and these 4 people, and I mean, like we had, stupid things that I had to problem solve really quick. Like the car that we had, they hadn't had time to like really let it air freshen out. So it smelled like cigarettes. So I was literally like, after I took the guests to the hotel, I was like, literally, I'm in the gas station, like cleaning it myself and putting things in before I have to take them to dinner. And they were really into foodie. They were like foodies. So I was taking them to all these different restaurants all over Kentucky where like all the big trainers and jockeys go. And we booked all these lunch reservations like a year and dinner reservations a year in advance. So like took them to all these 5-star restaurants, that overlook. So anyways, well, it always rains. So you can bet that the Kentucky Derby, it's either going to rain on Derby Day or on Oaks Day. And for this particular Derby, we got both. It was like absolute torrential downpour. And so like, and I always make the women, you always bring your dress and your fascinator, whatever, but you always bring wellies. I'm always like, you need to buy wellies. And they're like, what? Like, I'm like, nope, go order your hunter boots. Like they have to color coordinate your dress, like the whole thing. Right. Yeah. So we do all that. So the morning of the Derby, it's just completely downpour. And a lot of people, it's always interesting. I always have wealthy clients that don't understand how big of a deal the Kentucky Derby is. Like Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton have to walk like 500 feet to get to their limo because the limo parking is still almost like 3 blocks away. Like there's no VIP, let me drive up and get out. Like it's completely locked down. It's a huge event.
Yeah.
So I had this couple that was like, they were totally freaked out. We get special passes from the mayor that Angie gets for the jockeys to like run stuff for their sponsors. And so to get into the track, because parking is such a nightmare and you can't get in and there's like no shuttles, you have to walk. And it was like, so if we were going to walk, it was going to take us like, I don't know, probably 2 hours. And it was like, and it's so rainy, right?
Wow.
So Angie, of course, has a pass. This is the girl that works for me for the mayor, for herself, because she has to drive through with all the jockeys' pants that have all the embroidery for all the logos and their hats, all their stuff for all their promotions. So she has a pass. And this is Gary Stevens' wife. She's a really good friend of mine. So I have to take my clients first. And we drive into the parking lot. She's like, yeah, let's meet. We met at some restaurant, like a Denny's or something in the parking lot. And she's like, just meet us here. So we meet there. And then it's 5 of us crawling into her car.
Oh my.
And it's full of gear. And like 2 of the clients were like cool and they were down for it. But the other 2 were like mortified because they always thought that this was supposed to be this amazing VIP experience. And I'm like, you're like, they're not those kind of people, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, do you want to walk for 4 hours or do you want to get off at the door?
Right.
So and as we're driving past, we're in the car, I saw a video, like they're all laughing. They're like, oh, we're driving to the Kentucky Derby with our fancy pass, because where all the roads are closed, guess what? We're driving it.
Wow.
And so we get into the track in like 10 minutes. Absolutely pouring rain. I think they had no concept of how many people were going to be there. I love taking people to Derby for the first time. There's like people next to you and like on top of you, and you're trying not to get stepped on. Like never wear shoes that don't have, like the heels that your toes are out. No.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So all this. So we get, long story short, our box, because we had a box in a really good spot.
Oh wow. Oh my.
So we can't. So we're like underneath with everyone in the rain too. Like everyone's like underneath where the bedding stations and stuff. And the guys are trying to smoke cigars. Well, that doesn't work.
That's so funny.
And so I'm texting Angie and I'm just like, Angie, I got to do something for these people. Like, I feel bad. This is like their first Kentucky. They're just like completely soaked. Like,
oh no.
Right. And this is the same Derby that Justify won. So, so I'm like, I gotta do something. And I'm like, can we meet the jocks? She's like, yeah, but you gotta get them to the jocks room. And I was like, all right, Angie, you tell me, challenge accepted. But people don't realize this. So the Kentucky Derby has different levels of security. So I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, whatever. But like, so there's different levels of security. So there's like the normal track security, right? That travels with the jocks room and the jockeys, and they're with them all the time, no matter what track they're at, kind of thing. And then there's like, they hire different private security companies because there's so many people. And then they have the National Guard, which secures, because it's not in a very good area of town, that whole area outside, so people can walk safely and stuff.
Sure.
And so she's like, you got to get past like the first level of security. So, cause I'm like, oh God. So I got to take these poor people. And so she tells me where like, there's a back stairwell that goes through, and she's like, it's probably not manned, because it's not, like, it looks like it doesn't go anywhere. She's like, you're going to go up there and then go down and go straight through, and you can go through the back to the jocks room. And I'm like, okay. So I take my clients to the, like, I weave them up. I'm like, stay with me. Like, that's what I tell them. I'm like, stay with me. There's tons of people everywhere. I'm like, stay with me. So we're going to go see the jockeys. And they're like, oh, this girl's full of crap. Like, we've had this horrific like Kentucky Derby experience. Like, maybe she doesn't know all these people and this isn't connected, So I'm like, okay. And so I get them up the stairwell. And then we're going through the back, which is where all the families watch. And there's like big buffet dinners and stuff like that, where all the families and the owners of the horses watch. And it's kind of like just walk like you own the place and you know exactly where you're going, because we don't have the wristbands.
So just act like you
own
it.
Because I'm trying to get to another area where I don't need the wristbands, right? But we don't have them. So I'm like, own it. I was like, just walk like you own it. We own the place. And I'm just walking, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So we just keep walking. I'm like, just walk with me. And the woman and her husband, they are just mortified, because they think like, these are people that don't break the law or anything. You know, it's like, you're like driving the wrong way down a one-way street. And so I'm like, okay, let's go. And so we're walking. And then we go back and we go past this area of like, so we turn left and they have like the ham and all that. We're like back in like the food prep area. And I'm like cutting them past it. We get to the doors and we're out and the doors. And right as we get to the doors, one of the security guys comes like yelling at me and is like, hey, you guys, like, you're not supposed to be in here. Get over here, blah, 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 blah. And I go, I'm going to the jocks room. I got to meet people over there. And I open the door and the security guard that's in front of the jocks room knows me.
Oh,
he lived at the racetrack for like 3 years. So he sees me, and Angie told him we were coming. So he sees me, and I'm like, hey, man. And like, I wave, I'm like, I need your help. Or the clients, we got to go all the way back, and they're not going to be happy with me. And so I like wave to him, and he's like, oh, yeah, Kelly, come on. So I'm like, see? And so the lady's like, oh, okay, fine. And so they let us through into this area where it's like jockeys and their families and literally the people that own horses. It's this back terrace, right?
That's unbelievable.
And so we walk in there and the client is like having a meltdown. Like one of the women, she's in the back, I can hear her. She's like really upset. She like feels like they're breaking all these rules and like they're gonna get in trouble and get arrested or something. And even when we got past, and the best moment ever happened, Victor Espinosa was coming back from a race and we're standing right there and all of a sudden they get quiet because they get to see these big jockeys, famous jockeys. And we're sitting there like, oh, Victor. And Victor sees me and he knows me. And so he goes, hi, Kelly, how's it going? And he's like all excited. He's covered in mud and he's still stopped, giving me a high five. And the client's face just like, they didn't even know what to think about it.
Now they're totally like, what,
like, oh my God, like I guess we can be here, And so then after that, we waited outside and like, the jockeys came out to see them and they got to take a bunch of pictures with jockeys.
So
like
sweet.
Taking pictures with jockeys at the Kentucky Derby is like
unbelievable.
Not a thing that you can easily do.
Unbelievable. Unreal.
Yeah. I mean, and then they got to go and party with them too. Like we got private, we went to all the private parties in the evening and stuff. And so like it was just so funny because they were just like completely freaked out. They were gonna get arrested or something.
And you surprised them.
Perfect timing too. That like, cause this was before Mike had won too. So Victor was like the triple crown winning jockey that all these people are like, oh my God. And I've known him since before he won the triple crown. But so he's coming up. Hi, how's it going?
So cool. They had to be like in shock. They had to have gone from one end of the spectrum to the other.
I mean,
how cool is that? And
that's the thing. Like, I think people don't realize is the Kentucky Derby's not this super glamorous thing. It's horse racing. That's why people like it.
Yes, exactly.
Like, even I had a group once that we had a box like right in front of like the finish kind of thing, and we had a box, and they had decided that they wanted to go to the Kentucky Derby like a week and a half before the Derby, and I was able to get this box.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, "Oh my God, this is such crappy seating," because she thought she should be up in the suite, right? Which people don't realize, like suites in the Derby are like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you have to book them 2 or 3 years in advance.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we were there, and it was the same kind of thing. People get all like miffed by it, but then we were sitting next to a Hall of Fame jockey.
Oh my goodness.
And they were like, this is where, and the Angie and I were talking, like, this is where when the Sheik comes to watch.
There you go.
This is where he watches his horses go. It's like, it's so funny because I think that like people don't realize that it's horses.
They just don't have the idea. They don't know. And people too that maybe aren't involved in horses. I mean, probably a majority are, but people that aren't, they don't know what it's like to be around horses and in those areas and what it's like, but that is just so cool.
I mean, it's like horse racing I love horse racing. It's such an old sport, and like the people and the way it functions, especially Churchill, it's an old track, like it's gambling. What did you expect? Like,
that's so funny.
Horses.
Oh
my
gosh, that's so hilarious.
Had a baby that like came from like gangsters in England and Ireland. Like it's fun,
That's right. People don't realize. They just don't realize. That's so cute. I love it. I love it. Cool. Well, I know if we ever decide we're going to go see it, we are calling you. So.
And every group that I take, they get to go meet the jockeys and stuff. And we have like special things too, where like we have jockeys now. Like we were before COVID, we were going to do another week where we were going to do like jockey party bus.
Wow.
So like we were the week of the Kentucky Derby, we were going to have jockeys come and like sit on the party bus with people as they go from like the different restaurants and parties and stuff.
Wow.
And then there's a lot of like invite only parties that our clients can go to that we take them to, like Jock Tales, which is a party that benefits like the Disabled Jockeys Foundation, where jockeys actually like get the jockeys serve you the drinks and stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Fun.
Wow. That is really interesting. I didn't know. I had no idea. But how interesting and how neat that you've been able to do all of that, see all those things and know those people. That has to be so interesting. Wow. Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast and encourage you to share with all your equestrian family and friends. You can tune into the Late Night Riders podcast show every Friday night. Each episode will be uploaded exclusively on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all of our latest shows. Do you have a topic you'd like us to discuss? We want to hear from you. You may email us at podcast@ramfence.com or feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you again for listening.